with Truth here, and it's time for more Otaku Evolution. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and contribute to the Patreon. Today we'll be looking at an Adult Swim classic, Trigun. Yasuhiro Nightow's Trigun manga started in 1995, running as Shonen Captain until the magazine was discontinued, and then continued in Young King R's, the same magazine that ran Hellsing and Excel Saga. After the magazine changed, the name was changed to Trigun Maximum, which ran for 10 years and equaled 14 collected volumes. Studio Madhouse produced the anime based on the manga, which ran for 26 episodes. It didn't do gangbuster in Japan, but when it aired on the Adult Swim block on Cartoon Network in the US, it became rather popular. While it's been released on DVD on a few occasions, as of this video it still hasn't received a Blu-ray release. Trigun takes place on a human-colonized far-flung planet, and follows the exploits of the infamous outlaw Vash the Stampede. Known as the Humanoid Typhoon, the man has a $60 billion double dollars bounty on his head. But despite being well known for the wake of destruction he leaves, Vash is actually a rather peaceful and even pretty silly individual, whose infamy is largely derived from the damage done by people trying to capture him. In fact, the insurance agents Meryl and Millie, who were dispatched to follow him and mitigate his damage, have a hard time identifying him as Vash until a few episodes in, when he finally draws his gun and shoots. The premise is actually fairly similar to Rurouni Kenshin. A peace-loving guy with a past shrouded in mystery only draws his weapon to protect and has sworn off killing. More on that later. In Vash's case, though, it's not to redeem himself from a bloody former state, but out of a strong ideal. Again, more later. But like Kenshin, Vash has to tangle with various characters who test his, albeit technical, pacifism to its limits. Vash becomes hunted by a group of assassins called the Gung-Ho Guns, led by the depraved telepath Legato Bluesummers, for the sake of another, darker presence in Vash's life. Vash is extraordinarily durable and hardy, but he is tested both physically and mentally in these and other situations, which call his idealism into question. He is joined in some of these exploits by the mysterious priest Nicholas D. Wolfwood, who becomes his ally and friend, though also questions Vash's principles. Wolfwood is no ordinary man of the cloth, and "thou shalt not kill" seems pretty optional to him.
Who are you?
What happened to Vash the Stampede?
I don't know.
Damn.
If we act quickly, we may be able to defeat that man, that horrible devil of a man. Vash the Stampede is too dangerous to be left alive. If you help me, we can do this together.
I can't do that.
Are you insane? What's the matter with you? You and we could...
I'm sorry.
The show starts out largely episodic, establishing Vash's basic character until the fight with the Gung-Ho Guns begins, and then it takes few breaks in between showdowns with the killers. Through confrontations, we learn of Vash's past and his inhuman nature, and a lifetime that stretches back many years. The show culminates in final showdowns with Legato, and then the real force behind the assassins, Million's Knives. I'd like to take some time out to talk about how Trigun adapted the manga, and in general the differences and types of adaptation. There are two main kinds of adaptation: straight adaptation, which tries meticulously to capture the entirety of a work into a different medium to the best of the adapter's capabilities, and distillation, which takes the basic elements of one work and places them in a different medium while changing some other aspects. So, for instance, the difference between the first Full Metal Alchemist television series, which came out while the manga was still in its infancy, and the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood television series, which came out years later when the manga was close to finished, is that the former is more of a distillation where the latter is more direct, with few extra flourishes. Of course, there are also shades in between the two types. While the Trigun television series does lift plenty of material directly from the manga, it also lacks certain events that occur later in the manga, and has elements entirely original to itself, making it more of a distillation than a direct adaptation. This couldn't be avoided as the manga was still being written at the time. There are plenty of similarities between the manga and anime, but there are also some stark differences, such as the relative lack of blood and gore the manga lavishes us with in parts. But I'm not about to cry foul and demand a new adaptation. I wouldn't mind one, but I don't actually need it. Trigun the TV series is not Trigun the manga, and it does things a little differently, but it does those things really well, especially given its limitations. More on that later. Let's talk for a few moments about Vash the Stampede's conviction not to kill his enemies. And it is a conviction, albeit not particularly practical, especially in the world he lives in, not to kill, even in self-defense. Now obviously Vash is so skilled with a gun that he's capable of achieving his goal of not killing pretty easily just by making non-lethal shots, whereas somebody else may not. Other characters often criticize him for his over-the-top, even dangerous adherence to this principle, and to some degree, I agree with them. Now, don't get me wrong. To not kill is a good rule for a hero. You have your Supermans and Batmans who also don't kill, and find a way to save the day without it. I appreciate and respect that perspective, though it's unrealistic. But I also respect a more pragmatic hero who sees where things are going, and sometimes makes the choice to take a life in defense of others. You won't see me weeping any tears for Red Dragon mooks when Spike Spiegel puts a bullet through their brain in Cowboy Bebop. But Spike is a morally gray character. Mercy is something I generally look for in more optimistically heroic depictions. But whether or not Vash's ideals are correct is ultimately irrelevant to the proceedings. The fact is, those are his principles and they drive him forward, and he has to deal with the pitfalls of his beliefs. Much of the pathos of the show is from this, especially when contrasted with the cruel, unforgiving world Vash lives in.
I have betrayed, and they have betrayed, and we all let a lot of innocent people die! It's too late for us to go back now! And they're too damn clean!
Then you should start over.
What?
The ticket to the future is always open.
Trigun is a good show, but it's not such a good-looking show. I'm sure that some of that is due to the setting being on a largely desert planet, so the colors are usually some shade of tan or brown, but Trigun could truly be ugly to look at. The art style is fine for the most part, but there are art mistakes throughout, and the animation can be downright terrible at times. I mean, seriously, there are points where the animation is a glorified slideshow, even for anime. If there were ever to be a real reason to reboot this, it would be for improved animation quality. Fortunately, the characters and story shine through the poor visuals, and occasionally the visuals are fine too. There are some things that were in the manga that I'd love to have seen in the anime. For one, the more developed versions of Mid-Valley the Horn Freak, my favorite gung-ho gun, and Hopper the Gauntlet, and their team-up battle against Vash and Wolfwood. Another was the different Zazie the Beast. There's also Master Chapel, Livio, and Raslo. Oh, and Elendira the Crimson Nail. Okay, so there's a laundry list of characters and things I'd love to see animated, especially since action in the manga can be hard to follow at times. But the anime doesn't really lose anything from their absence. It's its own self-contained distilled version of elements in the manga, and shouldn't be discounted just because the manga differs later. It's got rich thematic resonance, and reaches its own conclusions about Vash and his world. Speaking of conclusion, there's a really badass fight between Vash and Knives at the end that I'll only show a little of here. Pretty boss, huh? It is. I like Trigun. I'm not sure I love Trigun, but I like it a lot. There aren't a lot of sci-fi westerns, and there aren't really other anime like it. It was a strong addition to the Adult Swim lineup, and I hope it gets the Blu-ray treatment someday, though I can't imagine it would look too much better. If you want a load of fun with a bit of heavy drama here and there, you can't go wrong with the Needle Noggin Gunman in the red coat. Trigun. It's good anime. Watch it. Next time on Otaku Evolution, we return to a franchise I've covered here before. I only hope the next entry is worth covering. Until then, see ya!
Well, I'll be. I'm actually surprised that you can smile like that.
Huh? What do you mean?
You had me kind of worried. I noticed that you always smile and seem really friendly, but the way you smiled was so empty it hurt to watch you. You're hurting like crazy on the inside, yet you grin and bear it. At least that's this man's opinion anyway.